Hello and welcome to another episode of the AgNext Podcast, where we're always excited to tell you what's next from AgNext. Today we have a special episode, and we are coming to you from Stockmen in the Stockyards, hosted at the National Western Stock Show. And I'm joined by two guest hosts, Dr. Jennifer Martin and Dr. Dawn Thilmany. Jen and Dawn, would you please take a moment to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Dr. Dawn Thilmany. I'm a professor in the Department of Agricultural and Resource Economics at Colorado State University and get to work with beef markets and beef producers as part of my extension role, both with food systems and community and economic development programs with CSU.
And I am Jennifer Martin. I am an associate professor and extension specialist in the Department of Animal Sciences, and I work to support Colorado's livestock producers and meat processors, not just in Colorado, but across the West.
Great. Thank you both for being here with us today. So today we're going to be speaking with speakers from the Stockmen and the Stockyards event, focusing on key takeaways of the presentation. We're excited to bring this event live to you in your home through our podcast. We're here at the Stockmen and Stockyards, and I'm joined by the members of the producer panel, which we just shared through this educational event, by Kory Kessinger, who's the president of the Colorado Livestock Association, Curt Russell, president of the Colorado Cattlemen's Association, and Robbie LeValley, an AgNext Industry Innovation Working Group partner. Would you all introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about your operations?
So I'm Kory Kessinger. My wife and I, Shannon, we have a cow-calf operation in northeastern Colorado in Akron. We also have a trucking company that we haul mainly fat cattle out of feed yards. Our past experiences were we ran a 25,000 head feed yard. We sold that in 2016 after the passing of my dad. That was a family operation. So when I went on the Colorado Livestock Association, my role there was a feeding, because we have segments, and so my segment was the cattle feeding side. So I've remained in that. I'm still very active with the feed yards through the trucking company. We deal with a large number of feed yards, and most of them relatively large feed yards. We also deal with several farmers and ranchers who use us regionally also.
Wonderful, thank you. Curt?
So I'm Curt Russell. My wife Susan and I run a medium-sized seed stock operation in southeast Colorado near Sugar City. Raise Simmental and Sim-Angus cattle. Also have significant experience in basically every aspect of the cattle industry, from feeding, running stockers, livestock supplies, etc.
Great. Robbie?
Thanks. Robbie LeValley, a cow-calf operation in western Colorado. We run on a combination of the public and the private ground, as well as having a diversified enterprise with not only our hunting enterprises, but also USDA packing plant and retail store where we market direct to the consumer.
Wonderful. So first of all, thank you for participating in the producer panel. I always think hearing from producers is the most impactful, and selfishly, I always learn the most from those panels. So thank you for sharing your wisdom earlier. One of the things that we discussed on the panel was risk and sort of risk at large. So would you guys take a moment and talk a little bit about the risk that you're most concerned about within each of your operations, and then what you're doing to mitigate that risk? And we can define risk very, very broadly here.
Our biggest risk right now is probably replacing cows. Okay. The risk of replacing cows has gotten tremendously higher because if you want to buy, say, out of a dispersal right now,
it's a little pricey.
It is.
Yeah.
I sat in Ogallala 3 weeks ago and bought cows. In the past, we have not raised actually a lot of heifers. We never retain our own heifers. And that's kind of the commercial side of me, the feedlot side of me.
Sure.
I want to write off as much as I can, so I go buy other people's genetics to do that. We have started keeping heifers the last 3 years, but we purchase them because that's actually the best way to do it right now. If you go buy a mature cow, especially if you buy one 5 years or under, you're looking from $42,000 to $5,000 right
Sure.
now. And so in order to do that, you're for sure 3 years from paying that cow off with the current prices.
Right.
Are we
So
going to
a
stay
typical
current?
Price
Right.
looks closer to 10 years, I'm assuming.
Yes. So it's a challenge to know how far to stick your neck out there. For example, our operation, I've been nervous about this for 3 years. So I didn't buy a lot of young cows. I bought what I felt were bargain cows.
Sure.
Short solid mouth, late solid mouth, even some short-term cows. You roll them 2 to 3 years and you're out of them. That was a mistake. You should have been buying young cows because this thing has lasted. Curt brought this up in our conversation earlier, but 2014, 2015, if you stepped out there and bought all those cows, it hurt a lot of people. It did. It took them, 10 years to pay some of those cows off. And so I was very hesitant to do that. So I think that's probably your biggest risk right now for a commercial cow-calf producer. If I'm a cattle feeder right now, I think your risk is your leverage and how much money it is taking to do this at 8.5% interest or 7.5% or whatever they're paying. I think the cattle feeders are they're making really good money right now. They're getting ahead, but to buy a $3,000 8-weight steer right now to go on feed looks really tough to me from the borrowing standpoint.
Yeah. Thank you for that perspective.
So Kory just hit all the big ones except weather. And I know we're going to talk about weather a little more, so I'm going to just say weather and drought is a risk, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But on top of that, of course, is the markets. Because we are at historic highs, how long are we going to hold that? And then for our operation, there is some risk in genetics. As we're trying to be cutting edge on genetics, we make mistakes sometimes by using young bulls that maybe aren't as well proven. Maybe we lean into a trait that we think is going to be important that doesn't so much. But I think more importantly for producers, for commercial producers in Colorado and anywhere else, is their biggest risk is not taking advantage of the genetics that are available to them. If they're still buying bulls, going to the sale barn when a local producer has a handful of bulls for sale and are buying the one that looks the prettiest that day, they're taking a tremendous risk with their future because they're not, if they don't use the genetic tools available to them through EPDs, through DNA, and through genomically enhanced EPDs.
Thank you. And you guys had a great discussion on the panel, Kory and Curt. Kory, do you want to go back to that for our listeners here to talk about the advantages that you see in that bull power and how you take those genetic improvements and really, make a lot of money, frankly, on that bull power through your business and through your lens?
Well, I consider your genetics a technology now. I really do, because I think what these seed stock guys are doing is incredible, and I'm glad they're doing it because I don't think I would have the patience or the wherewithal to do it. So therefore, we go in there and quite honestly, I don't feel like I can afford the very best bulls, but if I buy those middle of the road bulls, I've increased the quality of my herd tremendously in the last 5 to 10 years. I mean, these guys are doing such a wonderful job of producing bulls. So what we call middle of the road now would have been the highest sellers 15 years ago. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And so, and then when you look at it from the cattle feeding side of it, you got cattle right now who are yielding 64.5 to 65 going into the packers. And there's other technology helping that, right? Sure. But it's a majority genetics, and we're able to do that with these cattle weighing anywhere from 1,600 to 1,800 now, and so what they're doing with genetics it's helped our industry, an industry that is not going to. We're never going to get back to the numbers that we were even 10 years ago. The cow numbers will just never. They're never going to get there. We have a lot of restrictions on that from grazing lands to, quite honestly, equity, people who want to get into it, who can get into it. And so we have to come up with other ways to produce the beef that we have. And so therefore, the seed stock guys have done that. Whether they knew they were doing that or not, I have no idea. They're going to take a lot of credit for it, though, and they've done a wonderful job doing that.
So talk to me about how those yields in the plant are making you that kind of money, and how is that paying for those enhanced genetics and that bull power?
Well, honestly, I don't know that it's making me as a cow-calf producer as much.
Sure.
But it is.
If you're retaining ownership,
if you're retaining ownership, it definitely is.
Sure.
And what it's doing is it's making these feedlot guys right now. They're buying cattle. Yes, they can put hedges. They can do their risk management through the board. They can do those kind of things. And I was told by a feed yard operator this week that we're still making money right now. And so that's good. And what they're doing with that is they're able to do their risk management through their hedging or through their marketing that way. But they're also picking up, $5 to $10 a hundred by having an animal yield instead of 62.5 or 63.5, 64 to 66.
Yep.
So they're picking up that extra yield. They're running their break evens at 63.5. And so therefore, they're picking up money by doing it that way. So the seed stock is helped that tremendously. And like I say, there's other technologies that's helping it also. But I give a lot of credit to the seed stock producers right now.
Perfect. Thank you. Robbie, what risks are you thinking about, especially in your diversified business and going all the way to the consumer? And let's talk a little bit about the consumer, if you can weave that in there some.
Sure. And just staying on the genetic side, it's not just on the bull side. I mean, now literally with the genomics out there, we literally take a little snippet at branding time, and by in a couple of weeks after that, we know the top 100 of our heifers based on the criteria that we have, and it is literally so easy to sort a spreadsheet to figure out the replacement heifers to keep. I mean, it's just those kinds of innovations that, Kory's right. You can buy the bulls in the 100 to 400 as far as the sale order, and you've got the first 100 heifers, sorted, and you're moving the needle, and so that literally has helped. So it's not just the bull side; it's the heifer side as well, and that certainly has helped with the risk. And it also helps when we think about that risk, because we're no longer just looking at them. And when I say that, what I mean is, we all got carried away, and everybody claims to have an 1,100 pound cow. Literally, they're closer to 1,300 pound if everybody's honest. And when you go to the sale barn, it is, sometimes 1,500 if you're really honest. But again, we sell pounds, and so that's a good thing. But it is that ability to moderate, and have that, because you have that genetic, so it does help with the risk. The risk, again, and I'm going to weave back some of the work that not only CSU has done, but other research institutions as well, is we chased climate change. We chased methane, and we forgot about water. We forgot about some of the basics when it comes to a pound of protein, when it comes to that habitat, when it comes to that ability to move the needle. We all got caught up, and we've got to address the most recent climate change, or what the World Health Organization was saying, and we forgot about water. And water, literally, that ability to utilize that water to produce a pound of forage, to make sure that we can still use, just like producing more beef with less animals, we're producing more forage with less water now because of that innovation. And so again, when everybody runs down the road and chases what's supposed to be the next evil, they sometimes forget about the basics. And so that's where you've got to have that risk and that ability to say no. No, let's remember that it is still that pound of protein, that pound of forage that provides for all these other amenities.
And what are the consumers telling you in your consumer-facing business, Robbie?
Sure. So it's not so much that at the end of the day, what literally has is the brain health work. That this pound of protein is helping your brain, whether you're a little person or you're a person that needs to do a puzzle for dementia. This protein is helping you, and that has moved that needle, and that's what we're seeing when they come in. They want that pound of protein, that solid, dense pound of protein. They don't necessarily want to have a full plate of chicken that has, although good protein, and we want them to have protein versus Cheetos, they want it in a 3 to 5 ounce package so they can get on with something else. And so when you're able to show that consistently time in and time out and show the value per pound, that's what they're after. Plus when we can bring in that favorable, what we're doing for the environment, what we're doing for the individuals on the ground, what we're doing for the economy. When we think about the local economy, not just rural Colorado, but other states as well, and just the carryover into the urban areas, it is that economy. When we think about that ag is the second economy in the state of Colorado, it's critical that it's healthy and it's vibrant.
Great. Yeah, I agree. So we've talked a bit already about challenges with weather and drought, and we've also already brought up a lot of innovation. So what are each of you doing in your operations to mitigate around the drought risk, and what innovations are you using in that space?
Well, I guess in our case it'd be a couple of items. First, we use the PRF. I call it rainfall insurance, pasture, rangeland, and forage insurance available through a crop insurance agent that can really help offset added expenses in those years when we don't get the rainfall that we expect or hope for, and have to buy some outside feed or have to do other things, move cows to a different location to find grass. Helps cover some of those expenses. The second thing we have done is the last time we had to sell back cows because of drought, we didn't build our herd back much more when it rained again. We started running some yearlings when it rained. And we used those as our flexibility so that we always had grass for the cows and didn't have to, especially in our situation with the seed stock herd, didn't have to sell some fairly high value genetics.
Sure.
That's really hard to build back on
Mm-hmm.
later.
And irreplaceable, really, at the end of the day.
In some cases, exactly,
Yeah.
right. And I guess the third thing we've done is in some pastures where we have the ability is we have split them up into grazing paddocks and are using more intensive grazing and have certainly seen an improvement in our land, in our grass, and in our carrying capacity on those pastures.
That's exciting. Yeah, love hearing that. And then I must say, I know this wasn't part of the question, but I loved on the panel how you have game cams set up in your more extensive pastures to monitor water troughs. I mean, what a simple solution, but one that's going to reduce labor and really ensure animal welfare in those pastures. So we wanted to share those for the listeners, just because it was such a unique innovation, I thought. So that was super exciting. Robbie?
Sure, and similar to what Curt said, I mean, we've used the water technology on the tanks and the storage tanks, and not sure if we're supposed to mention the names, but it is a company that works very well with producers to, instead of driving 18 miles, on
You can mention the company.
Ranch Bot.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Using that technology has been a game changer, because literally it's when you're talking about 17 miles of pipeline and 12 tanks across an allotment, a BLM allotment, Bureau of Land Management allotment, then, not having to go out there every day, just look on the phone and see that. And then particularly with the virtual fence and that, being able to have those areas that we need to concentrate the animals on from a herbivory standpoint to improve the forage quality has certainly been part of the question. That's been a game changer and has made especially labor much more effective when we, instead of spending 3 to 4 days to find the last two, you can ride right to them with where they're at on the phone, as long as there's cell service, which I know they need to still work on that technology, and they're getting better at that, but it does still require cell service. But as far as the risk and the drought and that, I mean, as we previously mentioned, we've just expanded where we have the cattle to literally expand and have that flexibility. If we have areas that the water may or may not be there, then we can move to another area and have the ability to have that fresh water in front of them, because that does produce the pounds. forage has been there because we've actively managed and had the intensive manage for years now, and that's been proven with the monitoring. But the water's become more critical in the past, just having that, be able to have that water in front of them at all times. And it takes a lot of labor to move those cattle around to make sure we've got that water in front of them.
Robbie, you were an early adopter of virtual fence. Why? Why did you decide, as Curt mentioned, sometimes being an early adopter of a new bull, or I'm sure sometimes, Curt, that pays off to be an early adopter of a young bull. But what made you decide to be an early adopter of virtual fence, and how has it changed the way you guys operate your operation, your ranch?
When you deal with the federal agencies, whether it be the U.S. Forest Service or the Bureau of Land Management, and with us particular, it's the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as well as the National Park Service, then there are individuals within each of those entities that would prefer not to have cattle out on the landscape, even though they are a multiple use agency when we think about the Bureau of Land Management and the Forest Service. And so when the technology was presented to us that we would be able to showcase where the animals were, but more clearly showcase where the animals were not, we, on our allotments, for the greater good or the detriment to all of us, we have endangered species, threatened species on our allotment. And again, that puts additional pressure that for those people within the agencies that just assume that the cows are the reason that the threatened species is not thriving. So we were able to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt. It became that third-party verification, similar to a BQA audit
or a GAP audit.
It became that third-party verification. It wasn't just our word. It wasn't just what they were seeing on the ground with the improved forage. We were able to clearly show that our animals were not impacting the sage grouse, particularly the Gunnison sage grouse. And it became the ability to show that we were able to control where those animals were grazing and that they were able to provide significant impact in particular areas for annual cheatgrass control. And then we were able to show that those perennial grasses were coming back. And so, again, we utilized the vents for that virtual fencing to provide that third-party verification.
That's great. That's great. And sorry, Kory has the GAP certification, or had. Absolutely incredible. Yep. That you take advantage of that innovation. But I want to come back to and talk about how are you mitigating drought? We can get into other innovations too, but what are you thinking about on your operation?
So drought's a little different for Shannon and I because we lease the majority of our land. And so we're actually lucky because we do it by per month basis. And none of our landlords really want us to have a large capacity. So in the years that we hit drought, we typically have extra grass. In fact, I have neighbors that say, "Why didn't you run there every year?" And we do. We rotate through it. We utilize rotational grazing. But our landlords are very particular on. They do not want. We're in sandhills. We don't want it ate down. We don't want to have any issues with weeds or any of that stuff. Some of the people who will eat it down in our area, then we have prairie dog infestation at that point. Mm-hmm. So if you keep tall grasses, your prairie dogs stay out a little bit. So the only places we really fight prairie dogs now are around tanks where it is ate down. So, and then also we're in more of a farming area where years like this, when hay's under $100, I'm stockpiling it. Sure. So if we have to pull cows off, we will. We have places where we can feed those still. And we've done that. Typically, your older cows get pulled off, and we will spread everything else out. We've been fortunate, a lot more fortunate than the southern part of the state where these guys are from, as to not have those issues here the last 4 or 5 years.
You've gotten pretty good rain.
We've been very fortunate. Our day is coming. We know it will be. It's just the way things work. It's the way Mother Nature works. So therefore, that was always my dad's philosophy. You buy it while you can, and then keep it. And so we'll have hay that's 2 to 3 years old sometimes. I try to make sure and buy good hay that's dry. So then when we do get into these situations, we can offset the high dollar cost with something that we've had sitting around for a few years. But so our situation's a little different than some. then we also, with our feeding background, we still feed a lot of cows at a certain point of our year with a feed truck. We try not to, if we don't have to. Like this year, we're going to be plenty good. We'll come straight home from corn stalks and go straight to grass. We calve later in the year. That's a little bit of my philosophy, if you will. We calve in May. Your cow doesn't take as much winter feed, and so therefore we can save our money there. So if we have to feed them later in the year when we have a calf on them, we can. So just different management styles. I sometimes call our way a little bit of a lazy way because we don't like to calve when it's cold. We don't like to feed cows, so we calve later. And it was a result of being in a feed yard too. When you're running a feed yard in March and April and it's snowing and it's cold in February, you're not there taking care of your cow herd. And Shannon and I never, we've had a cow herd from the time we were married. And so even when we were running that big feed yard, we were still calving cows out. And so it was a necessity for us to move that cow back to a May calving time. And it's worked well for us, and we haven't changed, right or wrong, or otherwise. We've done it that way. So we're a little different than a lot of people that way. So
that's all right. That's great. And I'm sure the cows and calves appreciate a little warmer weather as well.
I'm not sure we're worried about them. We're more worried about ourselves. And it's worked real well for us. We've calved our heifers out in May the last couple of years, and I thought that was absolutely nuts the first year we did it, but it was somewhat of an accident when we did it the first time, and it worked out great. And so we've maintained doing that, and so it's worked. It works well for us.
Great.
And plus, our kids have been able to come home. They're home, the first, second week of May from college, and so then they help us through.
Help a little.
Yeah. So it works good.
So that leads me in perfectly to the next question I have, which we discussed at length on the panel, was what about this generation that is now coming home? Each of you are in different sort of spaces, I'll say, or different phases of generations coming home or succession of the ranch. But what are you guys seeing kind of on the ground? What are you excited about? What are you worried about in the space of succession?
So as I said in the panel, Shannon and I have our oldest graduated in May and from college, and he went, I told him he needed to go get a job for 4 years, or we told him that. And
I'm not sure any mom tells her little boy to go get a job.
I'm trying to figure out how to say that because Shannon's she's going to probably listen to this. And
we know it was you.
It was me. I'll take all the blame.
We know it was you, Kory.
No, it was a family decision. And Kaysen knew it too. He knew that he needed to go learn something. I feel like, our goal was to help us diversify again.
Absolutely.
We're relatively diversified, but we're not overly diversified. And so I said, go learn something. Go find another way for us to make money, so that when your family grows up, we're able to take care of everybody. And so we encouraged him to go get a job, and he interviewed for several of them. And he ends up in Canada working for a great company, a great guy, and is learning a ton. He's learned more than I ever would have dreamed, and it's only 6 months in, and he's doing a great job. We're sure hoping he comes back.
He will.
And
it's too dark,
right,
and cold in Canada.
It's dark and cold there, he says, and so and it's different. We don't think our neighbors to the north that it would be that different, but he explains the differences in society and beliefs and how everything works, and so he, it's different, and so we have no fear. The first 3 months we did have a fear that maybe he might not ever want to come back, but we have no fear now. He'll be home, and or at least back to the United States, and so we're hoping for that. And then we've changed our philosophy a little bit on, we don't have near as many employees since we stopped feeding cattle, but we've tried to bring younger people in. We have an employee that's worked for us for 48 years, and so we have the perfect trainer to help our younger employees learn. And actually, neither one of them have come from directly an ag background. They've helped, different farmers, different ranchers, all growing up, because that's what kids do. And these two are great kids. We have one that's been with us now close to 5 years, and I would trust him with anything. And it's because he's willing to learn, he's willing to work. He understands that living in rural, it's his hometown, but he realizes that maybe his paycheck's not as big as his buddy that lives in Denver, but what it costs him to live out there and what he gets to do out there in rural Colorado, in Akron, Colorado, is way more beneficial than having to be in the Front Range. And so we've tried that. And 15 years ago, you didn't have hardly any kids coming home. And now if you look at in our school district, I sat on the school board for quite a while, and we were in the 2000s, we were down. And then now that we're from, I would say 2012 and till now, our school has grown. In fact, we built a new school about 10 years ago, and there's been challenges where they've had to actually add on to our school because we're growing. So it's exciting. A good thing. I think kids are coming home. I don't know exactly what all of them are doing, but they are coming back. They're realizing that they can make a good living in our rural communities, doing jobs or working for families in our rural communities. And that was a struggle, especially in the late 90s and early 2000s, I believe. Very few of my friends came back, and so it's a good thing. And we have a lot of, our generations are getting older. I mean, it's inevitable. You don't think anybody should ever get old or anything should get old, but they're getting older, and we have people who are wanting to step aside. And what's really interesting, and these guys will touch on it, some of the things that they're doing, but what is interesting is you have families who are willing to let some of these younger people take over. And so I think that's a good thing. And so I hope that will continue. Farms have gotten bigger, but I still think there's room for these kids to get started if they want to come back.
That's exciting. Curt?
So coming at it from a little different direction from Kory, Susan and I have two sons. One of them we know won't come back. The other one would like to be in the beef industry. He's working on his doctorate right now in cattle genetics and reproduction.
Sounds like he'll be able to take over, no problem.
But he may have better opportunities than
sure,
that.
Yeah.
and away from Colorado in some cases. And so, we're looking, we don't know where we're going for sure, longer term, but I see that getting young people into the cattle business, the beef cattle business, or the lack of being able to get them into that business may be the biggest risk we have as an industry, is if we're all graybeards, or I'm sorry, Robbie.
She's not gray.
Yeah.
There's no gray.
100%.
But if everybody that's running a cow is a graybeard, it gets pretty tough to be a sustainable business. And so part of how we're hoping to try to change some of that is the Colorado Cattlemen's Association has recently put together a group with the permission of the board. We've put together a committee to work on bringing in younger producers and preparing them with older producers, absentee landlords, maybe people who are using ranches as primarily a trophy destination or a hunting refuge for themselves and their friends. Can that ground also be utilized by young people who are wanting to get into the industry? And we're not asking for handouts. We're not asking them to lease that ranch for little or nothing. But we want to be able to, maybe they've got a 50,000 acre ranch and we've got some young people that only need 10,000 acres apiece or 5,000 acres apiece. Can we put them together and as a group and help those young producers, first of all, get involved in the industry, learn, and then also help those landowners and older producers who may not have somebody in their family coming back to help them maintain their investment, to help them continue to take care of the land, but still be productive about it. And so I would say if you've got any listeners on this that particularly those landowners who are looking for some folks or looking for a way to be more productive or use their ranches for beef production, we'd love to talk to you. Give us a call at the association. You can look me up on the internet. I'm easy to find. And give us a call if that's something that would interest you.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I mean, even just the connection of the people and the exchange of knowledge is such a tremendous barrier for young people. So that's an incredible program, and I'm excited to see what's ahead for it. Robbie, your
Sure.
thoughts?
And I've said this story sometimes in different venues and that, but I was reading the minutes, and the minutes were from a local cattle association, and it was the 1940s. Now remember, it's in the 1940s, and so you have individuals coming home from war and that. But the items that were expressed frustration with in the minutes, and these are actual recorded documents, there on paper, they were worried about the average age of the producer. They were worried about that the young persons weren't coming home. They were worried about government overreach. They were worried about regulations.
Sounds very similar.
Sounds very similar. So you could say, well, what good are you guys if they're still worried about the same things today? But I often remind people who may be a naysayer there, just think of where we'd be if we weren't here, just consistently there and moving that needle. So it's nothing that we haven't faced before, but I am very encouraged, and I think I said on the panel, if you were to have asked me this question 10, 12 years ago, I'd have said it is the lack of young people coming back, but we have seen a resurgence, just as Kory said, and again, some of it's demographics, but we are seeing that resurgence come back and be willing to take over, and we're very fortunate on our operation that our oldest, and he just recently got married, and his wife are there. And it's just incredible as far as that ability to bounce ideas off of. And we gave him the same charge. We want you to go somewhere after college and do that. And thankfully, he only listened to us for a year and said, I'd like to come home now. And we're like, thank goodness, because the B team is wore out. But, it's been incredible. But it does take significant effort. And yes, the prices are good, but the expenses are horrendous right now as well. And so, are we the same net as we were? For some of the expenses, especially when you throw in the expense of estate planning, because that doesn't come easy. You've got to fund that estate work, and that takes away from that cash flow. So you got to be willing to realize that for the long term, you're going to set aside dollars just for estate work, and then the estate work is going to change almost every year, and so you've got to readdress that. So again, I'm encouraged. I'm also encouraged that our boys have a peer group, because there is a significant number of young people that have come back, and that didn't always happen. I know when Mark and I started, there was very few producers. Yeah. There's a peer group now that they can bounce ideas off, and they're very innovative, and they're willing to not only inform the consumer, but bounce ideas off of each other, and that's fun to watch.
Yeah, and that community is important.
It is.
Can I
add in.
So when she says that, it's really interesting, because I was raised, and my dad was this way. You don't tell anybody what you're doing.
Sure.
It's your business. I mean, there's times you don't even want your banker to know what you're doing, right? And so that's what's really cool about this next generation. And social media has encouraged that.
Sure.
And there's a lot of social media that I don't appreciate, right? But it has encouraged it. And so, it's encouraging that these young people are willing to try to educate people and let them know what we're doing, because I'll guarantee you, the three of us, we were raised not to do that. We were raised to keep your mouth shut, do your business, and nobody needs to know. Mm-hmm. And so I'm that way a lot. And so, I'm glad for that. I'm glad for associations, encouraging that, bringing people in to do those kind of things. And so it's really fun to see that part.
Well, good job raising a generation that is transparent and also leans on each other, because that's important too.
Yep.
I want to end with one final question, 15 seconds each to answer. But what are you most encouraged about related to the beef industry in the next 3 to 5 years?
So I think what the most encouraging thing is to me is the consumer loves our product. And so with the shortage of numbers, with technology that we have, and you know, I'm a big believer in the checkoff. So what the checkoff has done, what a lot of these meat organizations have done to encourage people to continue to eat beef, encourage them to understand the nutritional value of beef. I'm encouraged that we're in the right direction. We're headed in the right direction, and we're gonna continue to have really good markets here for I think a long term. Will it be as high as it is right now for a long, long time? I don't know that, but I don't think we're going to ever get cheap again.
To echo Kory, the thing that encourages me most right now about the beef industry is the consumer demand for our product, the quality product that we've really grown and developed over the last 20, 30 years.
And I'm going to end, just like I said on the panel, I'm most encouraged that we've got the young people at the helm and that they are willing to talk to the consumer and they're willing to educate the consumer and they're willing to take on the bigger issues. But they're there and they're taking it further than any of us ever will.
Wonderful. Thank you for your time and your partnerships with AgNext and Colorado State University, the National Western Stock Show, Colorado Livestock Association, Colorado Cattlemen's Association, and Colorado Beef Council, all of the sponsors of today. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in to each of these educational episodes, and we'll see you soon. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the AgNext Podcast. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, X, LinkedIn, and Instagram. If you have comments, suggestions, or any feedback that you'd like to give us, please send us an email to agnext@colostate.edu, and we'll do our best to answer you as soon as we can.